Hello. Welcome to Heavy D Storytelling. We are going to be reading a story, but first up we are going to be doing Bible verse time with JJ, and then we are going to be reading the Bible, and then we're going to do synopsis for Charlotte's Web, and then we're going to be doing Charlotte's Web. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and the bell on the video. By the way, we're doing Luke 6:38. I didn't look at my book. Let's go straight into it.
35.
All right. 6:35. But have your enemies and do good and but love your enemies but love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the evil. Hope you guys enjoyed that little part of the Bible. Now we're going to be reading a little bit bigger part of the Bible. Actually, a lot bigger part of the Bible. But we are going to be reading Jonah, chapter 3. Hope you guys enjoy. See ya.
Hello! Hello two people. We're actually going to be reading chapter 3 and 4 since they are so short. And Jonah, not Acts. We are no longer in Acts. This is the book of Jonah. So, this is Jonah chapter 3. I'm waiting for everybody to get it pulled up. I think we're almost there.
I have it where I had the bookmark.
Yeah, right where the bookmark was. Right where the bookmark was.
I have a bookmark too. I use it. It's really helpful.
All right. So I am going to go ahead and begin. And this is, again, Jonah chapter 3. This is the English Standard Version. Let me begin. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and call out against it the message that I tell you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, 3 days' journey in breadth. Jonah began to go into the city, going a day's journey, and he called out, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. And the people of Nineveh believed God. They called for a fast and put on sackcloth, from the greatest of them to the least of them. The word reached the king of Nineveh, and he arose from his throne, removed his robe, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he issued a proclamation and published through Nineveh, By the decree of the king and his nobles, let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock taste anything. Let them not feed nor drink water, but let man and beast be covered with sackcloth, and let them call out mightily to God. Let everyone turn from his evil way and from the violence that is in his hands. Who knows, God may turn and relent and turn from his fierce anger, so that we may not perish. When God saw that they did it, or saw what they did, how they turned from their evil way, God relented of the disaster that he had said he would do to them, and he did not do it. Chapter 4. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. And he prayed to the Lord and said, O Lord, is this not what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee to Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, and relenting from disaster. Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. And the Lord said, Do you do well to be angry? Jonah went out of the city and sat to the east of the city and made a booth for himself there. he sat under it in the shade till he should see what would become of the city. Now the Lord God appointed a plant and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be a shade over his head, to save him from his discomfort. So Jonah was exceedingly glad because of the plant. But when dawn came up the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the plant so that it withered. When the sun rose, God appointed a scorching east wind, and the sun beat down on the head of Jonah, so that he was faint. And he asked that he might die, and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." But God said to Jonah, "Do you do well to be angry for the plant?" And he said, "Yes, I do well to be angry, angry enough to die." And the Lord said, "You pity the plant for which you did not labor, nor which you did not make it grow, nor which came into being in a night and perished in a night. And should not I pity Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also much cattle?" And that is the end of the book of Jonah. This is, I think we were talking in the car yesterday on the way to Awana's. Yesterday night, we were talking in the car about some of the heroes in the Bible that we commonly think of heroes. Another one would be Samson. Another one would be Solomon. These are heroes that aren't really heroes because they have like a negative arc painted in the Bible story. So, and negative arc meaning they started out like they had lots of potential, and instead of doing great things for God, they kind of either flatlined or they actually went down. So that's what I mean by negative arc. All right, so yesterday in Charlotte's Web, we read about Charlotte and Summer Days. So what happened was there was this spider named Charlotte, and Charlotte bit Wilbur, and Wilbur had an allergic reaction and died.
No, he didn't die, he blew up.
Here's Kimberly to say what really happened.
I'm reading it and it says he blew up.
Okay. Wilbur and Charlotte became friends despite Charlotte's eating habits. Let's say that. She eats flies. And the goose hatched her gooselings, and Templeton, the rat, under Wilbur's food trough, said, "Hey, can I have your extra egg that didn't hatch?" There were 8 eggs, but only 7 gooselings. So she let him have the egg, and we get a little tidbit of stuff that says the goose was probably thinking this. Oh, look at Wilbur. He doesn't even know that the farmers are plotting to kill him during winter. Yikes. I'm going to hand it off to Dad, who's going to continue our story.
So as you can tell, the main character is eventually going to die, just like my synopsis, my version of the synopsis, always finds the way to doom and gloom the main character. All right, so this is chapter 7, Bad News. And by the way, if you're looking for good news, as far as the length of these chapters, we are going to be really short tonight, so I hope that's all right. We are doing 2 chapters a night. That's what I've allotted for the time in our Old Testament books. So this is chapter 7, Bad News. Wilbur liked Charlotte better and better each day. Her campaign against insects seemed sensible and useful. Hardly anybody around the farm had a good word to say for a fly. Flies spent their time pestering others. The cows hated them, the horses detested them, the sheep loathed them, Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were always complaining about them and putting up screens. Wilbur admired the way Charlotte managed. He was particularly glad that she always put her victim to sleep before eating it. "It's real thoughtful for you to do that, Charlotte," he said. "Yes," she replied in her sweet musical voice. "I always give them an anesthetic so that they won't feel pain. It's a little service I throw in." All the days went by. Wilbur grew and grew. He ate 3 big meals a day. He spent long hours lying on his side, half asleep, dreaming pleasant dreams. He enjoyed good health, and he gained a lot of weight. One afternoon, when Fern was sitting on her stool, the oldest sheep walked into the barn and stopped to pay a call on Wilbur. "Hello," she said. "Seems to me you're putting on weight." "Yes, I guess I am," replied Wilbur. "At my age, it's a good idea to keep gaining." "Just the same, I don't envy you," said the old sheep. "You know why they're fattening you up, don't you?" "No," said Wilbur. "Well, I don't like to spread bad news," said the sheep, "but they're fattening you up because they're going to kill you, that's why." "They're going to what?" screamed Wilbur. Fern grew rigid on her stool. "Kill you. Turn you into smoked bacon and ham," continued the old sheep. "Almost all young pigs get murdered by the farmer as soon as the real cold weather sets in. That's a regular conspiracy around here to kill you at Christmas time. Everybody is in on the plot. Lurvy, Zuckerman, even John Arable." "Mr. Arable?" sobbed Wilbur. "Fern's father?" "Certainly. When a pig is to be butchered, everybody helps. I'm an old sheep, and I see the same thing, same old business, year after year. Arable arrives with his .22, shoots the— "Stop!" screamed Wilbur. "I don't want to die! Save me! Somebody save me!" Fern was just about to jump up when a voice was heard. "Be quiet, Wilbur," said Charlotte, who had been listening to this awful conversation. "I can't be quiet," screamed Wilbur, racing up and down. "I don't want to be killed. I don't want to die. Is it true that the old sheep says—" "What the old sheep says, Charlotte? Is it true they are going to kill me when the cold weather sets in?" "Well," said the spider, plucking thoughtfully at her web, "the old sheep has been around in this barn a long time. She has seen many a spring pig come and go. If she says they plan to kill you, I'm sure it's true. It's also the dirtiest trick I've ever heard of. What people don't think of." Wilbur burst into tears. "I don't want to die," he moaned. "I want to stay alive right here in my comfortable manure pile with all my friends. I want to breathe the beautiful air and lie in the beautiful sun." "You're certainly making a beautiful noise," snapped the old sheep. "I don't want to die," screamed Wilbur, throwing himself to the ground. "You shall not die," said Charlotte briskly. "What? Really?" cried Wilbur. "Who's going to save me?" "I am," said Charlotte. "How?" asked Wilbur. "That remains to be seen, but I am going to save you, and I want you to quiet down immediately. You're carrying on in a childish way. Stop your crying. I can't stand hysterics." And here is a picture of the sheep talking to him and him going ballistic. And JJ is following along in a paperback copy that we have today. You don't have to show it to them. They believe me. All right. Chapter 8, A Talk at Home. On Sunday morning, Mr. and Mrs. Arable and Fern were sitting at breakfast in the kitchen. Avery had finished and was upstairs looking for his slingshot. "Did you know that Uncle Homer's goslings had hatched?" asked Fern. "How many?" asked Mr. Arable. 7, replied Fern. "There were 8 eggs, but 1 egg didn't hatch, and the goose told Templeton she didn't want it any more, so he took it away." "The goose did what?" said Mrs. Arable, gazing at her daughter with a queer, worried look. "Told Templeton she didn't want the egg any more," repeated Fern. "Who is Templeton?" asked Mrs. Arable. "He's the rat," replied Fern. "None of us like him much." Who's us? Asked Mr. Arable. Oh, everybody in the barn cellar. Wilbur and the sheep and the lambs and the goose and the gander and the goslings and Charlotte and me. Charlotte? Said Mrs. Arable. Who's Charlotte? Oh, she's Wilbur's best friend. She's terribly clever. What does she look like? Asked Mrs. Arable. Well, said Fern thoughtfully, she has 8 legs. All spiders do, I guess. Charlotte's a spider? Asked Fern's mother. Fern nodded. A big gray one. She has a web across the top of Wilbur's doorway. She catches flies and sucks their blood. Wilbur adores her. Does he really? Said Mrs. Arable, rather vaguely. She was staring at Fern with a worried expression on her face. Oh, yes, Wilbur adores Charlotte, said Fern. Do you know what Charlotte said when the goslings hatched? I haven't the faintest idea, said Mr. Arable. Tell us. Well, when the first gosling stuck its little head out from under the goose, I was sitting on my stool in the corner and Charlotte was on her web. She made a speech. She said, I am sure that every one of us here in the barn cellar will be grateful to learn that after 4 weeks of unremitting effort and patience on the part of the goose, she now has something to show for it. Don't you think that was a pleasant thing for her to say? Yes, I do, said Mrs. Arable. And now, Fern, it's time to get ready for Sunday school. And tell Avery to get ready. And this afternoon you can tell me more about what goes on in Uncle Homer's barn. Aren't you spending quite a lot of time there? You go there almost every afternoon, don't you? I like it there, replied Fern. She wiped her mouth and ran upstairs. After she had left the room, Mrs. Arable spoke in a low voice to her husband. I worry about Fern, she said. Did you hear the way she rambled on about the animals, pretending that they talked? Mr. Arable chuckled. Maybe they do, he said. I've sometimes wondered. At any rate, don't worry about Fern. She's just got a lively imagination. Kids think they hear all sorts of things. Just the same, I do worry about her, replied Mrs. Arable. I think I shall ask Dr. Dorian about her the next time I see him. He loves Fern almost as much as we do, and I want him to know how queerly she is acting about that pig and everything. I don't think it's normal. You know perfectly well animals don't talk. Mr. Arable grinned. Maybe our ears aren't as sharp as Fern's, he said. And that is the end of chapter 9. Sorry, the end of chapter 8. The next chapter is chapter 9. It's called Wilbur's Boast. And the first word is A. And I hope that you're enjoying the story. Like I said, this is a very short edition because both chapters are short. But never fear, because both chapters tomorrow are nice and long. And we'll get to have a nice long reading tomorrow.
That was 2 chapters?
So I hope that you're enjoying the reading of Charlotte's Web. God bless you. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow.